Kick off today's show by letting me know in the comments section right now. Should the Washington Commanders sign one more player before the start of training camp on July 25th? Give me a yes or give me a no to kick off today's show. And now I'm going to be getting into my list here of if the Commanders want to add somebody else here before the start of training camp. I got 5 last-minute free agency targets that they can consider to try to bolster this Commanders roster here in 2023. So now let's start with the running back position here with the guy that's been connected with the Commanders over the last couple of weeks, running back Kareem Hunt. Now, the Commanders are looking for a true number one running back that is pretty dynamic, right? You look at Brian Robinson Jr. and you look at Antonio Gibson and Chris Rodriguez Jr. There's not a whole lot of combination of vision, speed, and power, that true bell cow, at least in my opinion. And Kareem Hunt could potentially be that for the Washington Commanders in 2023. Of course, he spent the early years of his career with the Kansas City Chiefs under offensive coordinator at the time, Eric Bienemy, so he's got that connection there. And Hunt wouldn't cost that much to bring in at this point. I think because he hasn't been signed yet. I think that at this point you could get him for $4 or $5 million on a one-year deal, and I think he would come in right away and be your true number one running back, or at least he'd compete for that spot with Brian Robinson, who's a very, very solid back, very tough player, plays with great vision, but he doesn't have the long speed to be a home run player, but Kareem Hunt does. So he's definitely somebody that could absolutely come in here and be a really productive running back for Eric Bienemy here in 2023. This offensive line is going to have a tough time run blocking, so having somebody that can make people miss is absolutely going to be a potential benefit for this offense. Last year, just 3.8 yards per carry for Kareem, so definitely not his best year. He definitely needs to have a bounce-back season, and because of those numbers right there in 2022, that's why he's not signed right now. He's going to get signed eventually, probably, for a low-level contract, and I think that he's going to have a shot to prove that he can still be a number one running back in this league, even though he's been a number two option in Cleveland over the last couple of years. And then, if you want to go another option here, go another route at the running back position, you could consider Dalvin Cook. Now, Cook is going to be a lot more expensive because his recent production is a lot better than Hunt's, right? 4.4 as opposed to 3.8 yards per carry. He had 8 touchdowns last year as the Minnesota Vikings' number one running back, and I think that Cook is still expecting to be paid like a true number one guy in this league, and I think he probably wants to go to a contender, so I'm not even sure if the Commanders would be on his list of teams that he would consider joining, but I definitely think if you're the Commanders and you want to target somebody, Dalvin Cook, the kind of explosion that he can bring to your offense is something that you should at least consider pursuing here if you are the Washington Commanders here heading into 2023. So what would you do with the running back room here in Washington? Would you sign Kareem Hunt? Would you sign Dalvin Cook? Or would you do nothing? Let me know down there in the comments section by giving me a KH for Kareem Hunt, DC for Dalvin Cook, or DN for do nothing. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's show. So YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. Take advantage of that time by answering today's pinned question. All right, so for me, I'm going to go with, if I have unlimited funds, which I don't, I'm going to give my actual answer here. I'm going to go get Kareem Hunt, okay, because I think you can get him for like $3-4 million. That's nothing for a one-year contract. You bring him in, you have him compete with Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson, and Chris Rodriguez Jr., and see where the chips fall. Now, if Brian Robinson's the best guy in your room and Kareem Hunt is completely washed, then I think that is fine as long as you have that element in there that could potentially be that number one bell cow in your running back room for at least for the foreseeable future here. Then the guy that I think I would sign, if I could pick anybody on the free agency market right now, if I were the Commanders, is interior offensive lineman Ben Jones, who has been a very reliable center for the Tennessee Titans for many, many years. He's played a ton of football in this league, and I still think he's pretty darn good. He graded pretty darn well with the Tennessee Titans back in 2022, only 1 sack allowed in 12 games played. And I think that he can play guard, he can play center, so depending on where you want Nick Gates to play, which is probably center. So if you sign Ben Jones, he's probably going to be playing guard, but he's done that in this league before, and he's done it well. So I think that with this offensive line, with the Commanders right now. You got Nick Gates, Sadiq Charles, and Chris Paul as kind of your candidates to be that left guard. I don't like that whatsoever. I need somebody that I trust more than those guys in that spot. Now, if you want to start Nick Gates at center, fine, but I think you need to solidify that left guard spot. And if I could just make one signing, if I were Ron Rivera here before the start of camp, I am bringing in the steady veteran because it's going to help you in the run game because he's a very solid run blocker. And it's also going to help you in the passing game because he's a very solid pass protector. You take a look at the depth chart right now. Hey, man, there's a lot of question marks there. You know, Charles Leno Jr. and Andrew Wiley, those guys are kind of just vanilla, boring type tackles in this league, right? They're just not super athletic, right? They have good technique, but they don't have the long arms that you necessarily look for. They don't have the physical stuff that you look for in a franchise tackle, even though the Commanders paid Wiley a ton of money in free agency this year. And then at the guard position, Chris Paul and Sadiq Charles just aren't doing it for me, plain and simply. I'm willing to try out Sam Cosmi at right guard, see how he does there. The Commanders are very excited to see what he can do on the interior. And you got Nick Gates, but I still think you need one more really, really solid piece in the interior of that offensive line. And I think Ben Jones is that guy. Another option that they could look at is Dalton Reisner. But I think this offensive line's biggest problem is going to be run blocking. You need somebody that can really be a solid presence on the interior to help your run game, help out Brian Robinson Jr., help out Chris Rodriguez Jr., whoever's running the football. You need some very solid, you need a solid left guard. You need a solid interior lineman. Dalton Reisner isn't the best run blocker. He's a good pass protector, but when it comes to the run game, Reisner's not going to help you out too much, whereas Ben Jones, much more solid in that phase of the game. That's why I would rather go with Ben Jones over Dalton Reisner at this point in the offseason. So if you made it to this point in the video and you are enjoying yourselves, go ahead and click that like button for me. Really do appreciate all the support. And if you're ready to get the 2023 season going here and you're ready for training camp to start, do me a favor here. Free and easy way to help out the channel. Click that thumbs up icon for me right now. Now, next on my list, Taylor Lewan, you know, is he going to be signing with anybody this year? I'm not too sure. He's slimmed down quite a bit, as it looks like on his podcast. It looks like he's lost about 10, 15 pounds. So is he even in playing shape right now? I have no idea. He's coming off a couple of big injuries. So maybe this isn't the most realistic one on the list. But listen, Taylor Lewan is somebody that's been in this league for a long time, has played a lot of games, and has had a lot of snaps. And I've been saying all offseason, I want the Commanders to challenge Charles Leno Jr. with somebody to come in here and challenge him for that spot, because plain and simply, he has not been good enough to this point to just say, yeah, we completely 100% trust Charles to be this awesome left tackle when he just hasn't played to that standard. 8 sacks allowed there in 2022. And, you know, Charles is fine in pass protection, I guess, but when he plays against some of the more elite edge rushers like a Micah Parsons, like probably a Nolan Smith gearing up here for the Philadelphia Eagles, I'm looking at somebody that can't keep up with those high-level athletes, and that really does worry me when the Commanders have to play these really high-end edge rushers there with him at left tackle. So I wanted them to bring in somebody via the draft. They didn't. I wanted them to bring in somebody via free agency. They still haven't done that, really. And Taylor Lewan right now, I think, is maybe their best option, other than maybe George Fant, some other names that are still out there. But Lewan's definitely the biggest name still out there in free agency. So let me know which guy is better right now. Is it Charles Leno Jr., type CL, or do you think Taylor Lewan should be signed here and try to challenge Charles Leno Jr. for that starting left tackle spot? Give me a TL if you think Lewan should be a Commander. Then finally on my list here, I got Kawan Alexander, the inside linebacker, coverage linebacker here. Played with the New York Jets last season, and he actually had a pretty decent year. I think that he's got some medical issues, so this one might not be possible simply because he's still dealing with some medical issues. There's been some teams interested that have completely ghosted him because after he's done a physical, so I'm guessing something is wrong with him from an injury standpoint, but just on paper, just from the football side of things, Kawan Alexander is a really good football player, and he's really good in coverage as a linebacker. And if he's healthy enough, I think the Commanders should consider adding him to this inside linebacker group that is definitely, let's just say, it doesn't have the best depth in the world. You got Jamin Davis. You got Cody Barton that you brought in from Seattle in free agency. You still got David Mayo. You got Khalil Hudson, who's doing some nice things in OTAs and minicamp. So it's going to be exciting to see if somebody can kind of rise up and take that second spot away from Cody Barton, because he's pretty much the most average linebacker in the National Football League, at least in my opinion. But at the end of the day, man, I think that adding a guy like Quan Alexander could really help this inside linebacker group. Now, I think that the secondary and the pass rush are very good here in Washington. I don't think the linebackers are going to be what makes or breaks this Commanders defense. I think it's going to be pretty darn good regardless. But Quan Alexander does bring experience. He brings skill. And if he's healthy enough, why not bring him in for a tryout and see what he's got? All right, so that's it for my free agency targets. But hold on. We're not done just yet. I got one more target for you, this time in the trade department. I've been talking about him all offseason long. This is the guy that I want the Commanders to go get, man. I love tight end Zach Ertz. I still think he's got it. I still think he's a really good receiving tight end. And Eric Bienemy is used to having a really high caliber receiving tight end in his offense. And I'm sorry to say it, guys, but Logan Thomas just isn't that. He's a solid possession-type tight end. He's okay, but he's nothing special, right? He's definitely nothing close to Travis Kelce. Now, neither is Zach Ertz, okay? Zach Ertz is not Travis Kelce, but he is a dynamic weapon you can put in this offense, and it can open up the playbook so that you can run some of the stuff that Eric Bienemy ran in Kansas City with Travis Kelce being the main read. And I think that would definitely help him out in his first year as Commanders OC and help him get a head coaching job. So really, I don't think that the Commanders are going to be, or the Cardinals are going to be asking too much for Zach Ertz. He's getting older. He likely doesn't want to play for a rebuilding organization like Arizona is doing right now. And Arizona, plain simply, they need as many draft picks as they can possibly get their hands on. I think a 7th or a 6th round pick is likely what you can get for him. So if you give Arizona a call here and they're willing to give you like a 6th or a 7th round pick here, willing to give Zach Ertz for that, I'm 100% doing that. I'm not even thinking about it. Zach Ertz would be an excellent fit here in Washington, and if they can get him on the team, I would absolutely pull the trigger. Now, let me know down there in the comments, which player do you want Washington to add to their roster before the start of training camp? Let me know down there in the comments section. I think there's going to be some pretty interesting names down there that I can't wait to see. Thank you guys so much for the support here. That's going to be it for today's program. Make sure you click that subscribe button to help us out here, help us grow, because we're getting ready for that 2023 season. It's going to be awesome here on the Commanders Report. I will see you guys later, and until next time, hail to the Commanders.